Viewer discretion is advised.
The largest fine ever levied over tampering was issued to the NBA's current tire fire, the Lakers, when they tried to get Paul George from the Pacers and got major blue balls. The fine was $500K. George denied the tampering. However, the NBA went deep into their phone records and texts and still found nothing. All respect to the Lakers, who lost a franchise great and basketball legend in a horrible tragedy. That is not subject to roasting. What is, though, is bringing in LeBron, who only came to you to pursue his best role, pretending he is not past his prime, and pairing him with Lance Stevenson, then talking major shit and not making the playoffs. Did Troy Dan delete that tweet because I think he owes me 20 bucks? How about Magic getting played by the Pelicans? Him quitting via TikTok would have been more respectable than just telling the media he had enough of the Bus family. Then after quitting, they still end up with Davis and all seems to be on track, but then the lockdown hit and there might not even be a playoffs. That's even shittier than Kyle Kuzma's decline into suckitude.
Los Angeles Lakers, Magic Johnson. Probably the toughest decision to make of any team, considering how many legendary players the Lakers have had. There are great arguments to be made for Kareem and Kobe, but in the end, I went with Magic because he's the best point guard of all time, and the Lakers were guaranteed to make the NBA Finals almost every year of his career, largely thanks to his brilliance running the offense. Magic was an elite player virtually from the very beginning of his career until the day he retired the first time. He's the best passer of all time, and he always churned out elite offenses. He was also a capable and ultra-efficient scorer when needed. He finished with 5 rings, 3 Finals MVPs, and 3 MVPs. He could have accomplished even more had he been more open to using condoms. Never forget to wrap it up, fellas. Los Angeles Lakers, Wayne Yates. It was tough to find a player for the Lakers, as throughout their history, they've either hit on their top picks or at the very least had their picks become decent pros. The one exception to this is Wayne Yates, who the Lakers took 5th overall in 1961 with the hopes of him providing much-needed frontcourt help to the legendary duo of Elgin Baylor and Jerry West. Unfortunately for LA, Yates completely flopped, playing just one NBA season and putting up terrible averages and efficiency. He finished his NBA career with just 72 points on 105 shots. Los Angeles Lakers. Lakers fans are the trust fund babies of the NBA. Kobe Bryant is the most overrated player in NBA history. He is constantly put in conversations with MJ and LeBron when he isn't on that level. Kobe wasn't even the best player on his own team for the majority of his rings. Congrats on watching Shaq average 35 points a game in the finals multiple times, but that doesn't make you better than LeBron. Speaking of LeBron, without him blessing this shit franchise in 2018, they would be going on a decade of losing seasons because they are run by a woman whose Twitter avi is something you'd see on OnlyFans. It's really tough to be bad with LeBron on your team, but this shit franchise has managed to do it. Imagine how bad they'll be once LeBron leaves.
5 years after he lost his championship co-star, Kobe Bryant silenced doubters by winning it all without Shaq. Twice. Kobe earned his first Finals MVP in 2009 as the Lakers took down Dwight Howard and the Orlando Magic in 5 games. That was also Coach Phil Jackson's 10th championship, pushing him ahead of Red Auerbach's record. And while Kobe had become LA's undisputed star, he did have a strong veteran supporting cast built by GM Mitch Kupchak. Clever Spanish big man Pau Gasol, stout point guard Derek Fisher, and the savvy, adaptable Lamar Odom. That cast only improved following the '09 championship. Young center Andrew Bynum still had knee problems, but had better luck fighting through them. And newcomer Ron Artest provided the boost LA needed to roll back to the finals in 2010 and exact revenge against the Boston Celtics, who'd beaten them in '08. Now with 2 Finals MVP trophies to go with his 2 Shaqless championship trophies, Kobe's on-court legacy was secure, but not necessarily done. Bryant had just signed an extension to stay in purple and gold well into his 30s. What would that final chapter of his glorious career look like? Would he find continued success with the same group? Would he recruit stars to form a new super team? Would he bring LA even more championship banners before saying goodbye? Well, after a title repeat, the first order of business was Phil Jackson's future. The 65-year-old coach had pondered going back into retirement, but decided to stick around one more season because a prophecy told him that was the right thing to do. Cool. The second order of business was Kobe's health. Bryant had been bothered by soreness in his shooting hand and in his surgically repaired right knee all season, and in July he got another operation on the knee. The championship hangover was real. Kobe rarely practiced with the team in an attempt to preserve his knee. Gasol felt the weight of big minutes, and Odom was extra fatigued because of a summer spent with Team USA. This all bred frustration, which boiled over at times, like when the Lakers suffered an embarrassing Christmas Day loss to the Heat and Kobe called out his teammates. Nevertheless, LA won 57 games, same as the prior season, and marched into the playoffs a 2 seed. They handled their business in the first round, eliminating New Orleans in what would be Chris Paul's final games as a Hornet. The second round didn't go so hot. The Lakers blew leads in games 1 and 3 against the Mavericks and got blown out in game 4. The closest they came to putting up a fight was occasionally attacking JJ Barea. Despite ending the season with a playoff sweep, the first of his coaching career, Phil followed through on his promise to retire. In retiring, Jackson shed some light on LA's unique front office. The man who'd been a Lakers fixture for most of the decade said he had minimal relationship with management and didn't expect them to consult him going forward. Jackson was not referring to Lakers GM Mitch Kupchak. He was talking about members of the Buss family, longtime franchise owner Jerry Buss and his children, several of whom had significant executive roles. Jim Buss was in charge of basketball operations. Jeannie Buss was in charge of the business side, and to add another wrinkle, was Phil's girlfriend. So yeah, these people who each felt very differently about the departing, extremely successful coach now had to replace him. Kobe had expressed approval for longtime Jackson assistant Brian Shaw, but Kupchak and the Busses made a point of not consulting players on the decision. They passed over all the in-house candidates for a newcomer, Mike Brown, the coach who'd worn out his welcome with LeBron and the Cavs. Kobe maybe wasn't thrilled with that hire, but he had to be excited when, following the 2011 NBA lockout, the Lakers agreed to a monumental trade. Kobe would lose his best 2 co-stars, with Gasol going to the Rockets and Odom to the Hornets, but he'd gain the best young point guard in the NBA and probably his best co-star since Shaq, Chris Paul. Just one problem. The NBA technically had control of the Hornets franchise, and after lots of whining from other teams, Commissioner David Stern vetoed the trade for what he called basketball reasons. While Paul ended up in a different LA jersey, the Lakers had to figure out how to handle 2 important players who were now pretty bummed that their employer had tried to dump them. Odom was upset enough that LA considered the bridge burnt and hurried to find a new home for him. They traded the reigning 6th man of the year to Dallas for just a protected first-round draft pick. Despite losing Odom, LA's first season under Mike Brown was pretty uneventful on the court. Kobe, Powell, and Bynum all played well. The Lakers made the playoffs as a 3 seed and won a tough first round against the Nuggets. But they once again fell in the second round to the eventual Western champ. This time, it was the mighty OKC Thunder. Perhaps more important long-term was LA's work off the court, like at the 2012 trade deadline. They didn't like their point guard situation after the Paul trade fell through, so they sent Fisher and a first-round draft pick away for big man Jordan Hill, then traded more picks to bring in promising young point guard Ramon Sessions. Sessions wasn't that good in LA, and he left in free agency that summer. So that was a bunch of assets, including multiple first-round draft picks dealt for very little. This was the same season in which Lakers management came under fire from Kobe for their treatment of Gasol. They came under further fire for Jim Buss's wild, careless shuffling of the staff around Kupchak, his attempts to completely scrub the team of Phil's fingerprints. And remember, that was his sister's boyfriend. CBS's Ken Berger called the Lakers a steaming pool of nepotism and nincompoops. Well, the steaming pool was about to have a pretty big summer. In July, the Lakers acquired aging star point guard Steve Nash, losing a few more draft picks in the process. In August, a long-rumored move finally went down. A massive 4-team trade that, among other things, sent Bynum to Philadelphia and brought the Lakers Dwight Howard, a superstar center with an expiring contract. Forget the future. With a 38-year-old point guard and a soon-to-be free agent center, the Lakers were going for it immediately. Basketball experts were thrilled, and SI put LA on their season preview cover, promising fun. Well, Howard missed a lot of camp and preseason recovering from back surgery. That's not fun. The brittle Nash fractured his leg in his second game. Not fun. Brown's attempts at installing a Princeton offense were eclipsed by how badly the Lakers defended to open the season. Jim Buss wondered aloud if Brown's system was flawed, then fired him after just 5 games, necessitating a hasty midseason hire. Not fun. Jeannie Buss assumed the Lakers would bring her pal Phil out of retirement, but Jim stunned and, in her eyes, betrayed Jeannie by going with another star coach, LA's former rival, Mike D'Antoni. Without the benefit of a training camp to get familiar, D'Antoni struggled to run his own system on the fly. Players missed time with injuries, egos clashed, and the awkwardness of the Howard-Gasol pairing led to Pau's occasional benching, which only led to more egos clashing. And speaking of which, friction between the Buss children got further complicated when their father, Jerry, passed away in February 2013 at the age of 80. Man, none of this is fun. When the Lakers finally began to turn it around after the All-Star break, Kobe tore his Achilles tendon. LA had won enough to slip into the playoffs, but promptly got swept by the Spurs, LA's first opening round exit since 2007. Entering the summer with no first-round draft picks and minimal space to build, the Lakers prepared to run it back. D'Antoni would get to coach a season from its beginning, and when Kobe got healthy, maybe the Lakers could coalesce and improve internally. One issue: Howard was a free agent, and he hadn't exactly loved his season with D'Antoni and Kobe. The Lakers could offer Dwight more money than anyone else could, and did what they could to woo him back, but Howard bailed, signing with the Houston Rockets. The Lakers knew they were boned. LA legend Magic Johnson, communicating via Bill Simmons' Twitter account for some reason, was already looking ahead to the summer of 2014 when they'd have some cap space. LA waived their 2010 Finals hero, who'd since changed his name to Metta World Peace. Metta responded as only Metta can. The Lakers made some minor signings, Swaggy P among them, and otherwise buckled down for a season that started okay but got super rough when Kobe messed up his knee like a week after returning from the Achilles stuff. That injury and many more sunk LA to 27-55, their worst record yet. Those 27 wins included a game in which the Lakers were so depleted by injuries that Chris Kaman had enough room to treat the bench like a bed. The 55 losses included a 48-point defeat to the Clippers, who, with Paul, had taken over as LA's superior team. It was a year-long embarrassment, and crucially, D'Antoni and Gasol still didn't get along. In the offseason, both of them left. Besides falling into a lottery pick, the primary lasting impact of that dismal 2013-2014 season was that despite his declining health and inclining age, the last player standing from those championship teams would be a significant part of the future. Weeks before his season-ending knee injury, Kobe had signed a 2-year contract extension. The Buss family once again felt pressure to build quickly around their aging legend. Pressure only complicated by the fact that Jeannie had taken a bigger role since her father's death and had publicly expressed her displeasure with Jim. Jim knew that he and the GM, Kupchak, needed to turn things around, and he publicly raised the stakes of not doing so. He said if he didn't bring the Lakers back to contention in the next 3 or 4 years, he'd leave. So, onward. With their 7th pick in the 2014 draft, the Lakers snagged burly, versatile Kentucky forward Julius Randle. With that cap space Magic had been so excited about, the Lakers pursued a number of big names. Here was the best chance for Buss and Kupchak to fix the Lakers fast. They wanted free agent LeBron James, but he chose to return home to Cleveland. They wanted to trade for Kevin Love, but he ended up with LeBron. They met with free agent Carmelo Anthony, but he eventually decided to return to the Knicks. So the Lakers did what they could in the open market, making Jeremy Lin and Carlos Boozer their foremost offseason acquisitions. They hired former Laker Byron Scott to coach the team and entered the season with a roster of Kobe, whatever remained of Nash, a potential future star in Randle, and a bunch of weirdos and youngsters. Then Randle broke his leg in his first ever NBA game. Then a struggling Kobe needed shoulder surgery. Then Nash, who hadn't played all season, retired. Scott's Lakers started the season losing and never looked back. They outdid the prior year's record with a franchise-worst 61 losses. So it would be another offseason with a lottery pick, which LA used on Ohio State point guard D'Angelo Russell. And once again, the Lakers aspired to add some big names. LA badly wanted a new front court of LaMarcus Aldridge and DeAndre Jordan, however difficult that might be to assemble. They brought out the big guns to recruit Aldridge. Yes, that's Adam Levine wearing a backward custom jersey, but Aldridge really just wanted to play for a winner, and the Lakers weren't that. Not anymore. Jordan had his own whole thing going on, but suffice it to say he didn't join the Lakers. Once again, LA had to scramble for alternatives and ended up with an offseason haul of Roy Hibbert, Lou Williams, and Brandon Bass. Yet again, Byron Scott was left to coach a roster of old Kobe, young newcomers, and a bunch of weirdos. Yet again, it went terribly, and this time, after a 2-13 start, Kobe announced he wasn't going to extend his contract again. It was time to retire. That 2015-2016 season would produce Kobe's preposterous final game, and in spite of that, yet another rock-bottom record for the Lakers, 17-65. Kobe's farewell meant one important thing. The Lakers didn't have to mess around with ambitious short-term pursuits anymore. They could rebuild for real. Losing and youth and space begat more losing and youth and space, which begat, after years of failing to attract stars, a couple huge additions. None of that, however, happened quickly or convincingly enough to make people forget the promise Jim Buss had made in 2014 to make the Lakers a contender in just a few years. Jeannie certainly didn't forget, and in 2017, she fired Kupchak, accepted the resignation of her older brother, and moved forward with a management group of Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka before that too fell apart. The group of people hoping to lead LA out of the lottery has minimal overlap with the group of people who got them there in the first place. So what happened to the Lakers during Kobe's final chapter? Well, first the West caught up to them. They wisely tried to trade their old championship core for a new one, but that got shot down in a way that generated hurt feelings and desperate moves. And while Kobe stuck around, his health deteriorated and a very messy front office whiffed on attempts to attract sidekicks for him. Kobe's departure didn't fix that messiness, but it did allow for an organic rebuild, which allowed for a dramatic one. The time in between was pretty grim. But the first peak was probably worth the valley, and Lakers fans hope more peaks lie ahead.